story opens on a remote island located off the coast of Costa Rica. A group of workers prepares to transfer a highly dangerous creature into a reinforced enclosure. As the operation begins, something goes terribly wrong. The animal lashes out, overpowering the security measures. Tasers fail to stop it, and despite desperate efforts, a worker is killed during the chaos. The incident immediately hints that whatever is being contained is far more dangerous than expected. Elsewhere in the Dominican Republic, a corporate lawyer named Donald Gennaro arrives to speak with the visionary behind the island project, John Hammond. However, Hammond is distracted, dealing with a personal family issue involving his daughter. Donald makes it clear that the situation cannot wait. Hammond's company is facing a massive lawsuit from the family of the deceased worker. The insurance providers have lost confidence in the park's safety, and investors are growing uneasy. Donald proposes a solution: bring in respected experts to independently evaluate the project and confirm whether it is truly secure. Meanwhile, in the Badlands of Montana, renowned paleontologist Dr. Alan Grant and his partner, paleobotanist Dr. Ellie Sattler, are busy excavating dinosaur fossils. Using advanced imaging technology, they uncover evidence of a velociraptor. Alan, however, prefers traditional hands-on methods over machines. While explaining the creature's anatomy, he emphasizes its resemblance to modern birds rather than reptiles. A curious child dismisses the dinosaur as unimpressive, prompting Alan to vividly describe how such predators hunted and consumed their prey alive, successfully terrifying the kid into silence. Their work is interrupted when a helicopter lands nearby. The unexpected visitor turns out to be John Hammond himself. Though annoyed at the disruption, Alan and Ellie listen as Hammond explains his ambitious plan. He has developed a private island where he is building an unprecedented attraction. To satisfy his investors, he needs their professional endorsement. At first, the couple declines. Hammond then sweetens the deal by offering to fund their research for several years, an offer too valuable to ignore. They agree to join him. Back on the island, a disgruntled computer programmer named Dennis Nedry secretly meets with a representative from a rival corporation. Tempted by a large cash reward, Dennis agrees to steal the park's genetic research. The buyer insists the data is worthless without living dinosaur embryos, handing Dennis a concealed container designed to smuggle them off the island. During the helicopter ride to the island, Hammond introduces his guests to Dr. Ian Malcolm, a mathematician who specializes in chaos theory. Malcolm explains his belief in unpredictable systems and nonlinear behavior, though his ideas are met with confusion. Once they land, Donald reminds Hammond that he has only 2 days to prove the park is safe. Hammond remains confident, insisting his guests will soon see that his vision is flawless. Their journey through the park comes to a sudden stop when they encounter a towering, living dinosaur peacefully feeding on treetops. The sight leaves everyone speechless. For Alan and Ellie, it's a dream come true, proof that extinct creatures are walking the earth again. Donald, on the other hand, immediately recognizes the financial potential. Hammond reveals that even larger predators exist on the island, including one capable of astonishing speed. At the visitor center, Hammond explains that his park isn't based on illusions or mechanical rides. Every attraction is a real, living organism. Through a detailed presentation, he reveals the scientific breakthrough behind it all. Dinosaur DNA recovered from prehistoric mosquitoes that fed on dinosaurs and were preserved in hardened tree resin. While extracting the DNA, scientists encountered missing sequences, which they completed using amphibian genetics. Fascinated, Alan and Ellie leave the presentation early to explore the laboratory. There, they meet Dr. Henry Wu, the chief geneticist, just in time to witness a dinosaur hatching from its egg. Henry explains that all dinosaurs in the park are engineered to be female, ensuring population control. When Malcolm questions whether this system is foolproof, Henry explains that hormonal manipulation prevents male development. Malcolm remains skeptical. Drawing on both science and human history, he warns that nature is unpredictable, and no matter how carefully controlled the system appears, life has a habit of breaking free from its limits. Alan's attention is suddenly drawn to a small but unsettling creature moving nearby. He is stunned when he learns that the park hasn't just recreated gentle dinosaurs, it has also brought back velociraptors, one of the most aggressive predators to ever exist. Concerned, the group is taken to the raptor enclosure, where a live cow is lowered in as food. During the demonstration, Hammond introduces Robert Muldoon, the park's head game warden and a specialist when it comes to raptors. Alan questions Muldoon closely and is alarmed to hear just how intelligent the animals are. Muldoon explains that their intelligence makes them especially lethal. Hammond tries to ease their concerns, emphasizing the extensive security systems, including high-voltage electric fencing. However, Muldoon admits that the raptors constantly test the fences, striking different sections in search of weaknesses. He also reveals that there were once 8 raptors, but their violent behavior led to most of them being killed, leaving only 3 alive. Later that evening, the group gathers for dinner. Hammond proudly announces that the park will be ready to open to the public within a few months. Donald immediately imagines wealthy tourists paying outrageous sums for the experience. Hammond pushes back, insisting that the park is meant for families, not just the elite. Despite this optimism, Malcolm voices serious doubts. He argues that the scientists involved were so focused on whether they could achieve this breakthrough that they ignored whether they should. Ellie agrees, pointing out that these animals are naturally aggressive and completely removed from the ecosystems they once belonged to. When Hammond asks Alan for his perspective, Alan admits that no one can predict what will happen when species separated by millions of years are suddenly brought together. The conversation is interrupted by the arrival of Hammond's grandchildren, Lex and Tim, whom Hammond believes perfectly represent the park's future visitors. The group is led to the automated tour vehicles, which travel along preset tracks without human drivers. Tim is thrilled to meet Alan and eagerly tells him he has read all his books. Alan, who clearly dislikes being around children, looks uncomfortable, but there's no escape. He's assigned to ride with both kids for the remainder of the tour. As the vehicles begin moving, Hammond learns that a storm may be heading toward the island. The tour starts with a pre-recorded narration guiding the passengers. When they pass near the Dilophosaurus enclosure, the voice explains that it was an early carnivorous dinosaur, capable of spitting venom that temporarily blinds and paralyses its prey. Unfortunately, the animal doesn't appear. Back in the control room, Chief Engineer Ray Arnold informs Hammond that the tour vehicle's headlights are malfunctioning. Hammond confronts Dennis Nedry, who complains bitterly about being underpaid and overworked. Meanwhile, the tour cars stop near the Tyrannosaurus paddock, where a goat is released as bait. Alan points out that a true predator wouldn't respond to such a setup. Sure enough, the T-Rex doesn't appear. Malcolm turns directly to the tour camera and sarcastically asks when they'll actually see a dinosaur. He claims this unpredictability proves his chaos theory. The animals refuse to behave according to human expectations. Suddenly, Alan exits the vehicle, and Ellie quickly follows. Hammond panics, realizing there are no locking mechanisms on the cars, but the technicians report a sensor malfunction. Alan leads the group to a massive triceratops lying on the ground. He becomes emotional, explaining that it has always been his favorite dinosaur since childhood. Ellie speaks with the park's veterinarian, who explains that the animal suffers recurring health issues every few weeks. Examining its eyes, Ellie notices the pupils are dilated and suspects poisoning. She spots a toxic plant nearby, though the veterinarian insists the animals never eat it. Unconvinced, Ellie decides to inspect the dinosaur's droppings to confirm her theory. Word soon arrives that the storm is not changing course, forcing Hammond to call everyone back. Ellie chooses to stay behind with the veterinarian, while the others return to the vehicles. Elsewhere, Dennis realizes he's running late. He contacts the man waiting to receive the stolen embryos, who urges him to hurry before the storm worsens. Dennis then casually tells Hammond he's stepping out for food, mentioning that he adjusted the system earlier, so parts of it might temporarily shut down, but there's no reason to worry. As Dennis secretly steals the embryo containers, Ray notices security systems across the park going offline. Hammond dismisses the concern, believing it's just part of Dennis's maintenance work. Shortly afterward, the tour vehicles grind to a halt. In the control room, alarms begin flashing as the electric fences fail throughout the island. Realizing the danger, Hammond orders his team to locate Dennis immediately. Back in the control room, Ray examines Dennis's workstation, trying to figure out what he changed. Hammond asks whether the Velociraptor enclosure has also lost power, but Ray confirms that its fence is still active. That only deepens the mystery. Why would Dennis shut down everything except the most dangerous paddock? When they attempt to reboot the system, they realize it's locked behind security passwords, and even the phone lines are dead. Out on the tour track, Tim notices strange ripples forming in a nearby pool of water. He becomes convinced that something massive is approaching. Donald nervously brushes it off, assuming it's just a sign that the electricity is returning. His confidence disappears when a bloody chunk of the goat suddenly crashes onto their vehicle. Moments later, the Tyrannosaurus emerges from the darkness. Terrified, Donald panics and bolts from the car, abandoning the children behind him. Alan urgently tells Malcolm to remain completely still, explaining that the predator reacts to movement. The kids, however, are overwhelmed by fear. Lex accidentally switches on a powerful flashlight, instantly drawing the dinosaur's attention. The T-Rex attacks, flipping their vehicle and nearly crushing the children. Acting quickly, Alan grabs a flare and throws it to divert the animal. Malcolm does the same, managing to lure it away just long enough. Though Malcolm barely escapes, Donald is not so lucky. He's killed while hiding in a nearby restroom. As Alan helps Lex out of the wreckage, she spots the Tyrannosaurus looming over them and screams in terror. Alan quickly quiets her, urging her to stay calm. They hide behind the overturned vehicle, but the dinosaur shoves it over the edge of a broken bridge. Alan and Lex cling desperately to a hanging cable, barely managing to hold on as the wreck disappears into the darkness below. Hammond orders Muldoon to take a gas-powered jeep to retrieve his grandchildren. Ellie insists on joining him, while Ray reminds Hammond that the entire system can't be restored unless Dennis returns to undo what he's done. Elsewhere, Dennis struggles through the storm, completely disoriented. He crashes his vehicle and stumbles into the jungle. When he encounters a small Dilophosaurus, he assumes it's harmless. His mistake is fatal. The creature spits venom into his eyes, blinding him before attacking and killing him. Back in the forest, Alan tells Lex he needs to find Tim. She panics, fearing he'll abandon them like Donald did, but Alan gently reassures her that he will return. He soon locates Tim trapped inside the fallen vehicle. Encouraging him to grab his hand, Alan distracts Tim's fear by joking about embarrassing childhood moments. Together, they carefully climb out just before the car plunges downward. Luckily, thick tree roots catch the fall and save them. Muldoon and Ellie reach the site where the tour vehicles stopped and discover what's left of Donald. Hearing Malcolm's groans, they pull him to safety. Ellie notices the second vehicle far below and investigates. Spotting footprints, she realizes Alan and the children survived. Suddenly, Malcolm senses vibrations and warns them, forcing the group to flee moments before the Tyrannosaurus charges through the area. Meanwhile, Alan and the kids take refuge in a tall tree. Large, herbivorous dinosaurs wander nearby, frightening Lex, but Alan assures her they only eat plants. During a quiet moment, Lex asks Alan what he'll do if he can no longer continue his fossil work. He reflects that maybe survival itself requires adaptation. Trying to ease their fear, Alan jokes with the kids, helping them briefly forget the horror they've endured. Ellie later tells Hammond that Malcolm has been sedated and is resting. Hammond insists Alan and the kids will be fine, believing Alan is uniquely qualified to handle the situation. He admits he built the park hoping to give children something real, something they could touch instead of illusions. Ellie reminds him that feeling matters more than control. Hammond accepts the truth, realizing he relied too heavily on automation and misplaced confidence. She points out that control was never truly his. What matters now is protecting the people they love. The next morning, Alan and the kids wake to find a towering dinosaur standing nearby. Lex panics, but Alan reassures her once again that it's harmless. She reaches out to touch it, only for the animal to sneeze and cover her in sticky mucus. As they explore the forest, Tim jokes that Lex will never try anything new again. She fires back, proudly calling herself a hacker rather than a computer nerd. Suddenly, Alan stops when he notices shattered dinosaur eggshells on the ground. He's shocked they've already begun breeding. Tim reminds him that Hammond claimed all the dinosaurs were female. Alan realizes the truth may lie in the amphibian DNA used during cloning. Some frogs can change sex in single-gender environments. The realization hits him hard. It confirms Malcolm's warning that life always adapts. Back at the control center, Hammond finally accepts reality. Dennis is gone. With no other option, he orders Ray to shut the system down completely, hoping that when they reboot it, all of Dennis's sabotage will be erased. When the team attempts to bring the park systems back online, the power immediately overloads and trips the circuit breakers. Realizing the only solution is manual, Ray Arnold volunteers to head to a distant section of the compound to reset the breakers himself. Elsewhere in the jungle, Alan and the children stumble upon a herd of gallimimus sprinting across the plains. Alan explains that the animals are running together like birds to escape a predator. Suddenly, the herd veers sharply in their direction. The trio dives beneath a fallen tree just in time. Moments later, the Tyrannosaurus crashes into view, snatching one of the gallimimus and devouring it in a brutal display. Terrified, Lex freezes, and once the danger passes, Alan carefully leads the kids away. Back at the facility, the system still hasn't rebooted, and Ray hasn't returned. Ellie senses something is wrong and insists on heading out to help him. As she moves through the compound, she notices large dinosaur footprints along the path. Ray soon realizes the worst. The velociraptor fences are no longer powered. They encounter a dinosaur ahead, and Ray urges Ellie to move forward while he distracts it. Meanwhile, Alan and the kids reach the perimeter fence and discover it's no longer electrified. Just as they begin crossing, a distant roar echoes through the jungle, forcing them to hurry. Inside the control room, Hammond and Malcolm guide Ellie as she restores power. Unfortunately, the fence reactivates too soon, electrocuting Tim mid-climb. Alan grabs him just in time, preventing a fatal fall. Alan manages to revive Tim using CPR. Ellie suddenly comes face-to-face with a velociraptor and narrowly escapes by slamming a door shut. Relieved, she feels a hand on her shoulder, only to realize it belongs to Ray's lifeless body. Horrified, she runs as the raptor continues hunting her. She escapes outside and locks the metal door behind her. Outside, Muldoon confronts a velociraptor with his weapon, but a second raptor ambushes him from the side, killing him instantly. Alan brings the children into the visitor center for safety and leaves them briefly to find the others. Starving, Lex and Tim find food and begin eating, but their relief is short-lived when Lex spots a raptor nearby. They flee into the kitchen, using stainless steel counters and doors to evade it. Alan reunites with Ellie, who leads him to a secure bunker where Hammond and Malcolm are hiding. Ellie explains that she managed to trap one raptor earlier, believing it couldn't operate doors, an assumption proven wrong as the raptor opens the kitchen door. Seeing Tim in danger, Lex pushes past her fear and distracts the raptors. Working together, the siblings manage to lure one into a freezer and lock it inside. They escape and reunite with the adults. The group rushes toward the control room. Alan struggles to hold a door shut against a raptor while urging Ellie to activate the security locks. Seeing him weaken, Ellie helps brace the door while Lex takes control of the computer system. Despite her fear, Lex successfully restores the locks, sealing the doors. Alan contacts Hammond and tells him to call for evacuation immediately. Before they can relax, the raptor begins smashing through the glass. Gunfire forces it back, but Hammond panics for his grandchildren's safety. The group climbs into the ceiling structure, but the raptor pursues them. Alan fights it off, nearly losing Lex in the process, but manages to pull her to safety. As they reach the main hall, the raptors launch another attack, only for the Tyrannosaurus to suddenly burst in and kill one of them. The remaining raptor turns its attention to the T-Rex, giving the group the chance to escape. Outside, they reunite with Hammond and Malcolm. As helicopters arrive, they leave the island behind. Alan finally tells Hammond that he will not support the park. This time, Hammond agrees, accepting that his dream was far too dangerous to control. Analysis: what if I told you that the most realistic dinosaurs ever put on screen were created over 30 years ago? Before CGI flooded Hollywood, before green screens took over filmmaking, one movie made audiences genuinely believe that dinosaurs had returned to Earth. Not animated, not cartoonish. Alive, breathing, dangerous. That movie was Jurassic Park. When it released in 1993, people didn't just watch it, they felt it. Theater seats shook, hearts raced. And for the first time, science fiction felt terrifyingly possible. This wasn't just a dinosaur movie. It was a warning, a spectacle, and a cinematic revolution rolled into one. What makes Jurassic Park truly special isn't just the T-Rex or the velociraptors, it's the restraint, the suspense, the way it builds fear not through noise but through silence, through anticipation, through the simple idea that humans may have crossed a line they were never meant to cross. In this video, we're breaking down why Jurassic Park still holds up today, how it reshaped modern cinema, and why no sequel, no matter how big or loud, has ever quite captured its magic again. This isn't nostalgia talking, this is storytelling at its peak. So buckle up, because we're heading back to the island where science met chaos and nature reminded humanity who's really in control. Released in 1993, Jurassic Park arrived at a turning point in cinema. Directed by Steven Spielberg, the film blended cutting-edge technology with old-school storytelling to create something audiences had never experienced before. The story is set on a remote island near Costa Rica, beautiful, isolated, and completely controlled, at least on paper. This island is home to a revolutionary theme park, one built on a single, jaw-dropping idea. Using genetic science to bring extinct dinosaurs back to life, not replicas, not attractions, real living creatures. The premise is deceptively simple. A group of scientists and experts are invited to preview the park before it opens to the public. Their job is to decide whether this ambitious project is safe, ethical, and ready for the world to see. What the movie promises, without giving anything away, is a clash between human confidence and natural unpredictability. It's a film that begins with wonder and curiosity, then slowly tightens its grip as cracks begin to show beneath the surface of perfection. Jurassic Park isn't about dinosaurs attacking people for shock value. It's about what happens when innovation moves faster than responsibility, when control is assumed but never truly earned. and from this seemingly controlled environment, a story unfolds that turns awe into tension and curiosity into pure survival. At first glance, Jurassic Park looks like a science fiction adventure, dinosaurs, technology, spectacle. But that's only the surface. Beneath the roaring creatures and iconic moments lies a carefully layered blend of genres working together in perfect balance. Yes, it's science fiction. Yes, it's an adventure film, but at its core, it's a survival thriller. The movie slowly shifts tones, starting with wonder, curiosity, and amazement, then tightening into suspense and eventually full-blown fear. And it does this without rushing, without constant action. The tension comes from anticipation, from the feeling that something will go wrong, even if you don't know when. The central theme is control, or rather, the illusion of it. The film questions humanity's belief that intelligence equals dominance, that because we can create something, we automatically deserve to control it. The dinosaurs aren't villains, they're consequences. Another key theme is responsibility. Jurassic Park asks a simple but uncomfortable question. Just because we can do something, does that mean we should? Science in the film isn't portrayed as evil, but arrogance is. Emotionally, the tone walks a fine line between awe and dread. Moments of childlike wonder are immediately followed by reminders of vulnerability. This contrast is what makes the fear hit harder and the story feel more grounded. As for its audience, the film is deceptively universal. Kids see dinosaurs and adventure. Adults see ethical dilemmas and cautionary warnings. Filmmakers see a masterclass in pacing and restraint. That's why Jurassic Park doesn't age, it evolves with its viewers. The story of Jurassic Park begins with an extraordinary achievement. Using advanced genetic engineering, a wealthy visionary creates something humanity has never seen before: living dinosaurs, cloned from ancient DNA and placed inside a state-of-the-art theme park. To validate the park's safety and credibility, a small group of experts is invited to tour the island before it opens to the public. At first, everything works exactly as promised. The systems are secure, the animals are contained. The future looks controlled. But Jurassic Park is built on assumptions. Assumptions that technology won't fail, that people won't make selfish decisions, that nature will follow rules written by humans. As the tour progresses, those assumptions begin to collapse. A single act of human greed triggers a chain reaction. Security systems go offline, power fails, and the delicate balance holding the park together disappears almost instantly. From that moment on, the story becomes a fight for survival. Dinosaurs don't suddenly turn evil, they simply act according to instinct. The real danger comes from underestimating them. The characters are forced to adapt, improvise, and confront the reality that intelligence doesn't equal control when facing nature at its rawest. What drives the tension isn't constant action, but consequence. Every shortcut taken earlier now demands a price. Every ignored warning proves justified. The island transforms from a showcase of human achievement into a brutal reminder of human vulnerability. And as chaos spreads, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. This was never a problem that dinosaurs caused. It was a disaster humans designed themselves. By the time Jurassic Park reaches its final moments, one thing becomes painfully clear: the dream is over. The survivors don't defeat the dinosaurs. They don't reclaim the park. They don't fix what went wrong. They simply escape. As the island collapses into chaos, the characters realize that Jurassic Park was never something that could be saved. The systems failed, the assumptions collapsed, and the belief that nature could be controlled was completely shattered. Survival doesn't come from intelligence or technology. It comes from knowing when to walk away. The ending quietly reinforces the film's core message: nature doesn't need permission to exist. The dinosaurs were never the villains of the story. They didn't break rules, they followed them. Hunger, instinct, survival. The real failure belonged to the humans who believed they could rewrite the laws of nature without consequences. Symbolically, the final escape represents humility. For once, humanity doesn't conquer the threat, it retreats from it. The helicopter lifting away from the island isn't a victory lap, it's a surrender, an acknowledgement that some doors, once opened, should never have been touched in the first place. There's also an unspoken warning in those closing moments. The dinosaurs remain, the knowledge exists, and the temptation to try again still lingers. The ending doesn't promise that humanity has learned its lesson, only that it survived this time. And that lingering uncertainty is what makes the ending powerful. Jurassic Park doesn't end with closure. It ends with a question: what happens when humans forget this lesson again? One of the smartest things Jurassic Park does is tell you exactly how it's going to fail, long before anything actually goes wrong. Early in the film, characters repeatedly talk about chaos theory. At first, it sounds like abstract science, but in reality, it's a warning. The park isn't unstable because of one mistake. it's unstable because complex systems always break in unpredictable ways. From the very beginning, Jurassic Park is mathematically doomed. Even the dinosaurs themselves carry symbolism. They aren't monsters, they're nature reclaiming space it was never meant to lose. The T-Rex isn't portrayed as evil. It's framed like a force of nature. Earthquakes, storms, wildfires, uncontrollable, unstoppable, and indifferent to human plans. Then there's the visual foreshadowing. Small details quietly hint at disaster. Animals behaving strangely, systems requiring constant human oversight, and warnings brushed aside in favor of optimism. The park looks impressive, but it's held together by fragile assumptions and shortcuts. One of the most iconic examples is the rippling water in the cup before the T-Rex appears. On the surface, it's just suspense. Symbolically, it represents consequences arriving before the cause is fully understood. You feel the impact before you see the threat. Even the park's design tells a story. Electric fences, concrete barriers, glass walls, all symbols of control, and one by one, those symbols fail. Jurassic Park visually reminds us that no matter how advanced our technology becomes, nature only needs one opening. The movie doesn't hide its message, it embeds it. And every rewatch reveals just how carefully the warning was built into the story. What makes Jurassic Park truly remarkable is how it was made. At a time when digital effects were still experimental, the filmmakers took a huge risk, combining cutting-edge CGI with full-scale practical animatronics. Many of the dinosaurs you see weren't digital at all. They were massive, physical creations weighing thousands of pounds, operated by teams of puppeteers. That physical presence is a big reason the dinosaurs still feel real today. Originally, the movie was planned to rely mostly on stop-motion animation, but early CGI tests were so convincing that the entire visual effects approach was rewritten mid-production. That decision didn't just change this film, it permanently changed Hollywood. Even the actors had to adapt. Performers often acted opposite mechanical creatures instead of green screens, reacting to real movement, real weight, and real unpredictability. Those genuine reactions translated directly onto the screen. Nature, fittingly, caused its own problems during filming. A powerful hurricane damaged sets, flooded locations, and forced the crew to rethink entire sequences. Instead of weakening the film, those limitations made it stronger, pushing the story to focus more on suspense than spectacle. There are also countless small details fans love discovering. Certain scenes were shortened or removed to maintain pacing. Iconic moments were built around sound design rather than visuals, and some of the most memorable dinosaur appearances are surprisingly brief, proving that less really is more. Behind the chaos on screen was absolute precision behind the camera. Jurassic Park didn't just push technology forward, it proved that innovation works best when it serves the story, not the other way around. Ever since Jurassic Park released, Hollywood has been trying to recreate its magic. Many creature features came before it, and countless dinosaur films followed, but few understood why Jurassic Park worked. Most imitators focused on bigger creatures, louder action, and higher body counts. What they missed was restraint. Compared to later entries in its own franchise, the original Jurassic Park feels almost quiet. The dinosaurs appear less often, but every appearance matters. Suspense is built through absence, not overload. The film trusts the audience's imagination, something many modern blockbusters no longer do. When placed alongside other science fiction thrillers, Jurassic Park stands out for grounding its fantasy in plausible science. The cloning concept feels just believable enough to be unsettling, making the danger feel closer to reality than pure fiction. Even when compared to modern CGI-heavy films, Jurassic Park often looks better, not because the technology was more advanced, but because it was used sparingly. Practical effects give the dinosaurs weight, they occupy space. They cast shadows, they feel present. What Jurassic Park does better than most of its genre rivals is balance. It never lets spectacle overpower story. It never lets action drown out theme. And it never forgets that fear comes from anticipation, not excess. That's why decades later, filmmakers are still chasing what Jurassic Park already perfected. When Jurassic Park hit theaters, it wasn't just successful, it was unstoppable. Audiences were blown away. People didn't come out of cinemas talking about plot twists or favorite characters. They talked about what they had just seen. Dinosaurs that felt real, tension that felt physical. A movie experience that demanded to be witnessed on the biggest screen possible. Critics, meanwhile, praised the film for something rare in blockbuster cinema, discipline. It wasn't just visually groundbreaking. It was tightly directed, intelligently paced, and confident enough to let silence do the heavy lifting. Reviewers highlighted how the film balanced spectacle with theme, never letting one overpower the other. What's fascinating is how the reception has evolved over time. Many effects-driven films from the 90s now feel dated. Jurassic Park doesn't. In fact, it's often cited as proof that modern CGI-heavy movies rely too much on excess and not enough on craft. Is it overrated? Some argue yes, usually pointing to nostalgia, but even critics of the film struggle to deny its influence. Entire generations of filmmakers, visual effects artists, and storytellers cite it as a turning point. Not just for dinosaur movies, but for cinema itself. Today, Jurassic Park isn't just remembered fondly. It's studied, referenced, compared against. And that's the true mark of its reception, not temporary hype but lasting relevance. So where does Jurassic Park ultimately stand? Its greatest strength isn't the dinosaurs, it's the discipline. The film understands that fear doesn't come from what you show, it comes from what you withhold. Every roar, every appearance, every moment of chaos is earned. Combined with timeless practical effects and a perfectly controlled pace, Jurassic Park delivers tension that still works decades later. That doesn't mean it's flawless. Some side characters don't get the depth they deserve, and later sequels have blurred the impact of the original. But those flaws never outweigh what the film achieves. Jurassic Park is a rare blockbuster that respects its audience. It trusts viewers to think, to feel, and to connect the dots. It delivers spectacle without sacrificing meaning, and entertainment without abandoning responsibility. So who should watch it? If you love cinema, it's essential. If you love science fiction, it's foundational. If you've only seen modern CGI spectacles, it's a reminder of how powerful restraint can be. The final verdict is simple. Jurassic Park isn't just one of the greatest films of its genre, it's one of the most important blockbusters ever made. Not because it asked, can we do this, but because it dared to ask, should we, REVIWS. I've always had a lot of admiration for Steven Spielberg as a filmmaker, and many of his movies rank among my personal favorites. Films like Schindler's List, Jaws, and E.T., the extraterrestrial show just how wide his range is as a director. Jurassic Park may run a little longer than necessary and leaves a couple of plot threads dangling, but none of that really diminishes how exciting and entertaining it is. More than anything, the film showcases Spielberg's remarkable sense of spectacle and storytelling energy. One of the biggest highlights is John Williams's musical score, which is absolutely outstanding. It's easily one of the most memorable soundtracks Spielberg has ever used. Much like Jaws, and even Psycho in its own way, the music plays a huge role in building fear and tension. Honestly, Jaws alone is a big reason I still feel uneasy about swimming in the ocean. The performances are solid across the board. Sam Neill and Laura Dern have delivered stronger work in other films, but they are still convincing and likable here. Jeff Goldblum, however, really stands out and brings a lot of personality to his role. Wayne Knight is effective as Dennis Nedry, playing him in a more restrained way than usual. Richard Attenborough is excellent as John Hammond, bringing warmth and ambition to the character, while young Joseph Mazzello is quite charming as Tim, especially considering how impressive he was in Shadowlands. That said, the true stars of the film are the dinosaurs themselves. The Tyrannosaurus Rex in particular is unforgettable. The combination of groundbreaking CGI and practical effects was revolutionary at the time and remains impressive even today. The cinematography is beautiful, the screenplay works well, and Spielberg's direction keeps everything moving with confidence and flair. I haven't read Michael Crichton's novel, but even without that context, the film is an absolute thrill ride. Overall, I'd give it a strong 9 out of 10. At its core, Jurassic Park explores a familiar warning. When humans interfere too much with nature, the consequences can be disastrous, assuming they survive long enough to face them. There's a moment where Sam Neill's character jokingly compares a dinosaur to a big cow to calm the children, but the movie quickly reminds us that even plant-eating giants can be deadly. And once the carnivores enter the picture, survival becomes a matter of minutes, not hours. Much like the shark in Jaws, the dinosaurs on Hammond's Island turn awe into pure terror. What begins as a visionary theme park experiment becomes a nightmare when the predators start hunting people instead. Released the same year Spielberg won his first Oscar for Schindler's List, Jurassic Park couldn't be more different in tone, yet it also revolves around survival, just in a far more fantastical setting. The cast is stacked, and while the kids can be irritating at times, the balance of suspense, action, and humor keeps the film engaging. John Williams once again delivers a score that elevates everything on screen. For me, the movie serves as a reminder that science should tread carefully when exploring nature's deepest secrets. Dinosaurs may be fascinating, but there's a reason humanity survived while they did not. Spielberg is sometimes guilty of leaning too heavily into sentimentality, and that has hurt some of his films for me, War of the Worlds being a prime example. Still, Jurassic Park manages to rise above that flaw and earn its place as a true classic. The story is inventive, the cast is memorable, and the effects are breathtaking. The T-Rex escape scene alone ranks among the most suspenseful moments in film history. While some later scenes stretch believability and rely a bit too much on kids running around, the movie remains an exhilarating experience. I still remember how it sparked a worldwide dinosaur obsession. As someone who loved dinosaurs long before the film came out, I even felt a little jealous watching them suddenly become everyone's favorite creatures. But that influence is part of the film's legacy and proof of just how powerful and enduring Jurassic Park really is. Anyway, I'll stop rambling and get to the point. This is an incredibly entertaining family film, one of those rare movies that manages to offer something for everyone. It's exciting, smart, scary, heartfelt, and endlessly rewatchable. I can recommend it without hesitation, and it's a film I never get tired of revisiting. Some movies grab you instantly and refuse to let go. I remember having an unexpected free afternoon after jury duty wrapped up early, and I decided to finally see this film I'd been anticipating for ages. I was fully prepared for that familiar letdown that often follows big expectations, but it never came. From the moment Richard Attenborough delivers that unforgettable welcome to the park, I was completely hooked. And when the massive dinosaurs first stride into view across the open landscape, it was genuinely breathtaking. Today, digital effects are everywhere, but at the time, this felt revolutionary. What truly elevates the film, though, is that it isn't just spectacle. Beneath the awe lies a surprisingly layered story, touching on ideas like chaos, control, and human arrogance. The characters feel real and well-drawn, the antagonist is recklessly outmatched, and the park itself is presented as a flawless marvel, right up until everything starts to unravel. Even the child performances, which I'm usually skeptical about, work beautifully here. The fear they show feels earned and authentic. Rather than overwhelming the audience with non-stop visuals, the movie understands restraint. Its scariest moments come from anticipation, what's hidden, what might be nearby, what you can't see yet. The danger feels immediate because the characters are trapped on unfamiliar ground, forced to survive in an environment that no longer belongs to them. The introduction of the velociraptors was especially striking. As a dinosaur-obsessed kid, I had barely even known about these creatures, and suddenly they were the most terrifying things imaginable. The famous kitchen sequence remains one of the most nerve-wracking scenes I've ever watched. The premise itself is irresistibly compelling. Ancient DNA is recovered, extinct creatures are brought back, and a groundbreaking theme park is born. But when the power fails, that carefully controlled vision collapses into chaos. This is a film I grew up with and have loved since the very first viewing. It's the kind of movie you always remember seeing for the first time. I watched it multiple times in theaters, later owned it on DVD and Blu-ray, and still return to it regularly. Somehow, it has never lost its sense of wonder. Even as a blockbuster packed with action, it takes its time. The first hour carefully introduces the world, the people, and the science before shifting into high gear. Once it does, the tension barely lets up. The action sequences still hold up remarkably well and continue to thrill viewers of all ages. Beyond the effects, the performances are excellent. Sam Neill, Laura Dern, and Jeff Goldblum all bring conviction and personality, especially impressive considering how much of their work relied on imagination rather than physical creatures. And Richard Attenborough brings warmth and gravitas to every scene he's in. I could happily watch him in anything. On a personal note, I still remember my younger brother and the pile of dinosaur toys scattered across our childhood floor. Dinosaurs had appeared on film long before this movie, even going back to early adaptations of The Lost World, but they had never felt so alive. When Steven Spielberg adapted Michael Crichton's novel into Jurassic Park, cinematic dinosaurs were forever changed. At its core, the story is a modern Frankenstein tale. A wealthy visionary succeeds in resurrecting the past, but ignores the warnings of those who understand the risks. State-of-the-art security means little when human greed enters the equation. One selfish decision is all it takes for everything to spiral out of control, unleashing creatures that should never have been disturbed. The tyrannosaurs and raptors captured the public's imagination like nothing before. These weren't sluggish monsters lumbering across the screen. They were fast, intelligent, and terrifying. The film's success even sparked renewed public interest in paleontology and science, which can only be a good thing. The movie was later re-released in 3D, and while the format didn't dramatically change the experience for me, it also didn't diminish it. The film's power has never relied on gimmicks. It rests on smart storytelling, unforgettable imagery, and a sense of awe that still resonates decades later. In the end, this movie was, and always will be, a thrilling, imaginative, and deeply satisfying family adventure, one that continues to shine no matter how many times you return to it. When it comes to the 3D release, there are a handful of moments that look pretty nice, but honestly, I don't think it adds much overall. Most viewers will be perfectly satisfied sticking with the original version. As for the movie itself, I still vividly remember the massive excitement surrounding its release. Long lines, sold-out showings, and that feeling that everyone had to see it on opening day. I've always considered it a solid film, but I've never connected with it on the deep level that many fans seem to have. My main issue has always been the lack of genuine fear. The first half of the movie is clearly designed to inspire awe, letting the audience soak in the wonder of seeing dinosaurs brought to life. Once the film shifts gears into action mode, though, it just never managed to scare me. A big part of that is because I never truly believed that any of the central characters were in real danger, and I won't get into spoilers here. That said, from a technical standpoint, the movie is extremely well crafted. Spielberg expertly teases what's coming, building anticipation before finally revealing the dinosaurs in full. When they do appear, it's hard not to be impressed. The visual effects still hold up remarkably well even today, and there's a strong case to be made that this style of effects-driven realism hasn't been fully surpassed. The cast is another strength overall, though I have to admit that Jeff Goldblum's quippy one-liners feel just as groan-worthy now as they did back in the early 90s. John Williams' score is yet another highlight. His music elevates the experience, adding a sense of wonder and emotional weight that helps sell the idea of this impossible world. While Jurassic Park isn't one of my personal favorites, there's no denying that it does enough right to remain worth watching. Yes, I'm aware that the Shania Twain song I referenced came out years after the movie, but that choice was meant to reflect how the film felt to me during the 90s, rather than being historically accurate. Even today, people continue to praise the visuals. Perhaps they've lost a little of their original punch, but they're still effective. For me, though, the real weakness lies in the story and what it tries to say. There are clear flaws, but they're mostly hidden behind impressive effects and moments of tension. That approach just didn't fully work for me, because I wanted more than just the novelty of dinosaurs that finally look real. If you don't get swept away by the concept alone and start questioning the decisions and intelligence of the characters, you might still find enjoyment in the performances. Goldblum in particular provides solid comic relief, but whether that's enough will depend on the viewer. Agree to disagree, I suppose. Released in 1993, Jurassic Park is a 2-hour American production that recently passed a major anniversary milestone. Spielberg returned here to creature-driven suspense, though it leans far less into horror than something like Jaws. The screenplay was written by David Koepp, who was still early in his career at the time, but would go on to work on many high-profile projects. The cast features a mix of instantly recognizable faces: Sam Neill in the lead, alongside Samuel L. Jackson and Jeff Goldblum, both of whom I wish had more screen time, as well as a young Laura Dern, who would later receive further awards recognition. Supporting roles from actors like Richard Attenborough, Bob Peck, and B.D. Wong round things out nicely. The premise revolves around a group of scientists invited to preview a groundbreaking theme park where dinosaurs have been genetically recreated using ancient DNA combined with frog genetics. What begins as a scientific marvel quickly spirals out of control once it becomes clear that not all of these creatures are harmless plant eaters. The presence of dangerous predators, most notably the Tyrannosaurus rex, turns the visit into a fight for survival, made even more intense by the fact that children are caught in the chaos. This isn't a film that relies on powerhouse acting, even though the performances are perfectly serviceable. The real star is the concept itself, dinosaurs existing in the modern world. Unsurprisingly, the movie earned 3 Academy Awards, all in technical categories, which is an impressive clean sweep. Its massive success also led to multiple sequels over the years, including more recent entries connected to the original vision of author Michael Crichton, who co-developed the screenplay. In the end, while it didn't completely work for me on a storytelling level, there's no denying its impact, or the craftsmanship behind it. The 1993 adventure film Jurassic Park is undeniably a landmark in cinema history and a movie that raised the bar for blockbusters of its time. Directed by Steven Spielberg, this film was revolutionary when it first hit theaters, and even after all these years, it remains highly entertaining. I've revisited Jurassic Park multiple times since its release, and it still manages to capture the same sense of wonder and excitement it did on first viewing. The story, adapted from Michael Crichton's novel by screenwriter David Koepp, follows wealthy entrepreneur John Hammond, who discovers a way to recreate dinosaurs using DNA extracted from insects trapped in amber. His vision is an ambitious island-based theme park where living dinosaurs are the main attraction. To validate his creation, Hammond invites a small group, including scientists, a mathematician, his grandchildren, and a lawyer for a guided tour. Naturally, things go off the rails when the park's computer systems are sabotaged, the security fences fail, and the dinosaurs are unleashed, turning a promotional visit into a desperate fight for survival. The cast is one of the film's strongest assets. Sam Neill, Laura Dern, and Jeff Goldblum anchor the story, supported by memorable performances from Richard Attenborough, Samuel L. Jackson, B.D. Wong, Wayne Knight, and others. Goldblum in particular stands out as the chaos theory expert, delivering a performance that's both humorous and thought-provoking. Neill does a solid job as Dr. Grant, while Dern's portrayal, though energetic, occasionally feels a bit exaggerated. Still, the ensemble works well overall and helps bring the characters convincingly to life. Visually, Jurassic Park was nothing short of spectacular when it was released in 1993. Even today, despite the fact that the effects are over 3 decades old, the practical effects and CGI still hold up remarkably well, arguably better than many modern films that rely too heavily on digital shortcuts. Iconic moments like the rippling water in the cup or the baby dinosaur hatching remain instantly recognizable and widely referenced, which says a lot about the film's lasting impact. For a movie centered on dinosaurs, believable creatures were essential, and Spielberg delivered them in spades. The music also deserves special praise. John Williams' score is atmospheric, emotional, and unforgettable. The main theme in particular stands among the most iconic film scores ever, easily holding its own alongside classics like Star Wars, Jaws, and Indiana Jones. That said, the film isn't without flaws. The plot requires some suspension of disbelief, especially in the early stages where the science-heavy exposition feels a bit clumsy. Once the dinosaurs take center stage, however, these issues quickly fade into the background. There are also creative choices that may divide viewers, such as the heavy focus on the children, who can come across as irritating at times, and the toned-down deaths compared to the novel, likely to keep the film more family-friendly and franchise-ready. The overwhelming merchandising tied to the movie can also make it feel more like a commercial product than a pure storytelling experience. Still, these shortcomings are largely outweighed by the film's strengths. Spielberg's direction keeps the pacing tight, the suspense high, and the action engaging. The movie never feels overly long despite its runtime, and it consistently delivers thrilling set pieces, especially once the raptors enter the picture. While I wouldn't personally rank Jurassic Park among the greatest films of all time as some IMDb voters do, it's absolutely a movie worth watching. It's a timeless classic, endlessly rewatchable, and an impressive achievement that kicked off one of cinema's most successful franchises. If you somehow haven't seen it yet, now is definitely the time. I give Jurassic Park a solid thumbs up. T-thumbs overall, this film works well as a summer blockbuster. The action sequences are massive and thrilling, and the visual effects are impressive and memorable. Unfortunately, the story itself is fairly thin, and many of the performances are uneven. Because of these weaknesses, the movie never quite reaches the level it could have achieved. Still, as the opening chapter of a trilogy, it delivers grand-scale excitement and sweeping entertainment, largely driven by astonishingly realistic giant animals brought to life through a groundbreaking blend of computer-generated imagery and practical animatronic models. The concept is adapted from Michael Crichton's novel, with the screenplay written by David Cope. The story begins on Isla Nublar, a remote island located about 120 miles off the coast of Costa Rica. A team of workers unloads a mysterious, massive container whose dangerous contents remain unseen. Chaos erupts when the creature attempts to break free, resulting in panic and the tragic death of one of the handlers. The island is owned by wealthy entrepreneur John Hammond, Richard Attenborough, the visionary behind Jurassic Park. Hoping to gain approval for his ambitious project, Hammond invites a group of experts, including paleontologists and scientists played by Sam Neill, Laura Dern, and Jeff Goldblum, to witness his extraordinary achievement. Living dinosaurs roaming freely in a controlled environment. These prehistoric creatures have been genetically recreated using DNA extracted from ancient mosquitoes preserved in amber, dating back to the Cretaceous period. Things quickly go wrong during a guided tour when a disgruntled employee, Nedry, Wayne Knight, sabotages the park's security systems in an attempt to escape with stolen embryos. His actions cause a complete power failure, allowing the dinosaurs to break loose and turn the park into a deadly survival scenario. The scientists, along with Hammond's young grandchildren, Joseph Mazzello and Ariana Richards, are forced to flee through the jungle while being hunted by the escaped creatures. As the first installment, the movie is highly entertaining, packed with suspense, emotional moments, and edge-of-your-seat thrills. The dinosaurs are unquestionably the true stars, both awe-inspiring and terrifying, and astonishingly believable. While the dialogue is simple and the narrative straightforward, the overall experience remains inventive and exciting. The film features an array of prehistoric predators and massive carnivores, including Tyrannosaurus rex and velociraptors, alongside towering herbivores such as Brachiosaurus, Triceratops, and Stegosaurus, often seen moving in majestic herds. Many of the most intense moments involve humans desperately trying to escape through dense jungle terrain, relentlessly pursued by razor-toothed giants, especially the iconic T-Rex and the deadly raptors. Several standout scenes elevate the tension, such as a vehicle hanging precariously over a cliff while the characters struggle to survive. These moments showcase strong physical performances from the cast. Among the actors, Sam Neill shines as a capable and compassionate paleontologist. Jeff Goldblum brings charm and humor as a quirky mathematician, and Wayne Knight effectively portrays a selfish and morally dubious character. The special effects remain remarkable even today, thanks to the seamless collaboration between practical effects from Stan Winston's team and cutting-edge CGI developed by Industrial Light and Magic under the guidance of Phil Tippett and Dennis Muren. John Williams' sweeping musical score adds emotional weight and wonder, while Dean Cundey's cinematography captures both the beauty and danger of the island. Steven Spielberg's direction is confident and energetic, filled with his signature storytelling flair. The film is rated above average and is definitely worth watching. It was followed by The Lost World, also directed by Spielberg, and Jurassic Park III, directed by Joe Johnston. While the movie appeals to both teenagers and adults, it may be too intense for younger children due to realistic and sometimes violent dinosaur attacks. As a longtime fan of classic B-movie science fiction and horror from the 1930s through the 1950s, I especially enjoyed the pseudoscientific explanation behind the dinosaur cloning. The idea that ancient DNA could be preserved in mosquitoes trapped in amber is clever, imaginative, and surprisingly convincing. It makes you want to believe such a breakthrough could actually happen. When the film was released in 1993, it completely captivated audiences, and for good reason. For the first time, dinosaurs didn't just look real, they felt real. From gentle giants feeding at treetops to earth-shaking predators, the creatures behaved exactly how we imagined they might have. The stampede sequence, in particular, was mesmerizing, introducing species I'd never even heard of before. I remember wondering whether velociraptors were real at all until I later looked them up. In the end, this movie succeeds by bringing prehistoric life to the screen in a way that feels vivid, believable, and unforgettable. Just thinking about it now, you'd naturally expect strong performances from the main cast, and they absolutely deliver. But what really stood out to me was the work done by the child actors. Joseph Mazzello and Ariana Richards bring an authenticity that's rare, especially in effects-heavy films. Their reactions, whether it's amazement, excitement, or sheer panic, feel completely real, as if they're genuinely face-to-face with living dinosaurs. Richards, in particular, is unforgettable during the moment when her brother's life seems to hang in the balance. The fear on her face is genuinely moving and hard to shake. Jurassic Park is one of those rare films where the word experience truly applies. It wasn't just groundbreaking visually, it was also the first movie released using DTS digital surround sound, which added an entirely new layer of immersion. Even years after its original release, it's the kind of film that practically demands to be watched in a proper home theater setup, where both the sound and visuals can really shine. Since just about everyone already knows how the story unfolds, I'll focus more on what the film represents. Its 1993 release feels strangely symbolic. With Bill Clinton beginning his presidency, the era felt fresh and forward-looking, and this movie mirrored that sense of technological optimism. In a way, it recalls the early 1960s optimism tied to John F. Kennedy, a moment when the future felt limitless. That feeling is reinforced by the fact that the same director also released Schindler's List that year and went on to win multiple Oscars for it. Not all sequels fared well, though. The Lost World felt uninspired and overly familiar, rehashing ideas from the original without capturing the same magic. It was predictable and, frankly, disappointing. I skipped Jurassic Park III altogether. One fun personal note: during a trip to Maui in 2003, I took a helicopter tour that flew over several locations used during filming, which made revisiting the movie even more special. Directed by Steven Spielberg, whose resume includes classics like Jaws, Raiders of the Lost Ark, E.T. the Extraterrestrial, and Saving Private Ryan, this film, alongside Terminator 2, set a new benchmark for visual effects. It was a defining movie of my childhood and remains a favorite to this day. The story is adapted from the novel by Michael Crichton, and it retains that balance of scientific curiosity and cautionary storytelling. At its core, the film follows paleontologist Dr. Alan Grant and paleobotanist Dr. Ellie Sattler, both experts in dinosaur research, who are invited by eccentric billionaire John Hammond, founder of the bioengineering company InGen. Hammond wants their approval for his ambitious theme park on the remote island Nublar, off the coast of Costa Rica. Joining them are chaos theorist Dr. Ian Malcolm and corporate lawyer Donald Gennaro. Their initial awe upon seeing living dinosaurs, especially the towering Brachiosaurus, is unforgettable. The visitor center tour explains how dinosaur DNA was recovered from prehistoric mosquitoes preserved in amber, with missing genetic material supplemented using frog DNA. Although the dinosaurs were engineered to be female to prevent breeding, ethical concerns quickly surface about resurrecting creatures long removed by natural selection. Hammond's grandchildren, Tim and Lex, join the group on the park tour, which is meant to showcase Jurassic Park as a safe and controlled attraction. Predictably, things unravel. A tropical storm approaches, and disgruntled programmer Dennis Nedry sabotages the park's security systems to steal dinosaur embryos for a rival company. With power down and fences failing, chaos erupts. What follows is a relentless chain of disasters. Dinosaurs escape containment, the Tyrannosaurus Rex breaks free, Gennaro meets a grim end, Malcolm is seriously injured, and the children narrowly survive a terrifying fall. Elsewhere, Nedry's escape attempt ends badly, and the stolen embryos are lost for good. Even decades later, the film holds up, not just as a technical milestone, but as a thrilling reminder that pushing science too far without considering consequences can be just as dangerous as the creatures it creates. As chaos spreads across the island, Ellie Sattler teams up with game warden Robert Muldoon to search for survivors. Their search turns up only Ian Malcolm, badly injured but alive. The trio barely escapes a terrifying nighttime encounter with the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Elsewhere, Alan Grant and the two children find themselves among a peaceful group of Brachiosaurus, a brief moment of wonder before morning reveals something far more unsettling. Shattered dinosaur eggshells. Grant realizes that the dinosaurs must be breeding, concluding that West African bullfrogs were likely used to fill in missing DNA strands, frogs known for their ability to change sex in single-gender environments. As Grant and the kids continue their journey, they witness a breathtaking stampede of Gallimimus and once again narrowly avoid the T-Rex. Back at the park, John Hammond insists that the only way to restore communications and security is to reboot the entire system. Chief Engineer Ray Arnold reluctantly agrees, and while the reboot initially works, he heads off to a maintenance shed to finish the process. When Arnold fails to return, Sattler and Muldoon go after him, only to discover that shutting the systems down has allowed the velociraptors to roam freely. Sattler reaches the shed and uses a walkie-talkie to guide Hammond and Malcolm through restoring power, unaware that Grant and the children are climbing an electric fence that suddenly comes back to life. Inside the shed, Sattler makes a horrifying discovery, Arnold's severed arm, and narrowly escapes a raptor attack. Muldoon is not as fortunate and is killed in a deadly ambush. Grant and the children manage to reach the visitor center, where Grant leaves them briefly to search for the others, unaware that two raptors are stalking the building. Eventually, Grant, Sattler, and the children reunite and head to the control room. Thanks to Lex's computer skills, full power is restored and help is finally called. Just when escape seems impossible, the group is cornered by raptors, until the Tyrannosaurus Rex storms in and takes them out. With the nightmare over, Grant makes it clear that he will never support the park, and Hammond sadly agrees. The survivors escape the island by helicopter, leaving Jurassic Park behind. The supporting cast includes B.D. Wong as geneticist Henry Wu, Gerald R. Molan as Jerry Harding, Miguel Sandoval as Juanito Restagno, and Cameron Thor as Dennis Nedry's associate, Louis Dodgson. While the performances are solid across the board, the real stars are undeniably the dinosaurs themselves, brought to life through a groundbreaking mix of cutting-edge CGI and practical effects. The story may be straightforward, but the excitement is relentless. The script is sharper than it first appears, and it remains a film the whole family can enjoy. Many sequels followed, but aside from Jurassic World, none truly matched the impact of this original science fiction adventure. The film earned Academy Awards for Best Visual Effects, Best Sound, and Best Sound Effects Editing, along with a BAFTA win for Best Special Effects. It also appeared on multiple greatest lists, cementing its place in pop culture history. As someone raised on a steady diet of dinosaur and monster movies, I couldn't have been more excited when Steven Spielberg released Jurassic Park in 1993, promising dinosaurs that felt genuinely alive. The film didn't just meet expectations, it shattered them. Adapted from Michael Crichton's best-selling novel, the movie became a massive box office success and permanently changed what audiences expected from visual effects. Sam Neill, Laura Dern, and Jeff Goldblum play scientists invited to preview a revolutionary dinosaur theme park, built by an ambitious entrepreneur hoping for their endorsement. When corporate greed and human error sabotage the park systems, the visitors find themselves fighting for survival against a towering T-Rex and a pack of cunning velociraptors. While the movie simplifies parts of the novel, Spielberg's direction ensures non-stop tension, unforgettable imagery, and iconic moments, like the subtle ripple of water signaling approaching doom. Even years later, the film still looks incredible and remains one of the greatest creature features ever made, often considered the strongest entry in the series, at least until the still-developing fourth installment finally arrives. Jurassic Park remains a masterclass in cinematic escapism. It stands head and shoulders above much of Steven Spielberg's more recent output, especially when compared to disappointments like his latest Indiana Jones adventure or the misfire that was War of the Worlds. The story begins after a fatal incident at an ambitious dinosaur attraction known as Jurassic Park. Its wealthy creator, John Hammond, invites a group of specialists to evaluate the park before it opens to the public. Among them are paleontologist Dr. Alan Grant, botanist Dr. Ellie Sattler, and chaos theorist Ian Malcolm. What they discover is no ordinary theme park. Located on a secluded island near Costa Rica, it houses living, breathing dinosaurs. These creatures have supposedly been brought back to life by extracting prehistoric DNA from mosquitoes trapped in amber, a clever bit of pseudoscience that fuels the film's premise. At first, the guests encounter gentle plant eaters, but it soon becomes clear that far more dangerous residents also roam the island, including the mighty Tyrannosaurus rex and the highly intelligent velociraptors. While these predators are meant to be securely contained, their presence makes the scientists uneasy. The evaluation tour includes Hammond's grandchildren, Tim and Lex, as well as a company lawyer, and initially everything seems carefully controlled. Unsurprisingly, things unravel quickly. A powerful tropical storm approaches the island, and at the same time a disgruntled employee sabotages the park's computer systems in an attempt to steal dinosaur embryos for a rival corporation. Security measures, including the electric fences, fail, leaving visitors stranded and exposed. As chaos erupts, a terrifying T-Rex attack forces the tour group into a desperate fight for survival, while the remaining staff scramble to restore power and regain control. Not everyone makes it out alive. When the film was first released in 1993, audiences were stunned by its groundbreaking visual effects, and remarkably, those effects still hold up decades later. The dinosaurs look convincing enough that you almost forget they vanished millions of years ago. Thankfully, the spectacle is supported by a strong script and a talented cast. Spielberg wisely takes his time setting up the characters and explaining the world, which makes the later danger far more impactful. You care who survives, and you even have a sense of who probably won't. The film doesn't rely on excessive body counts or graphic violence. In fact, its most gruesome moment is a fleeting glimpse of a severed limb. Still, despite its relatively mild rating, Jurassic Park delivers genuine tension and several truly frightening scenes. Sam Neill and Laura Dern are excellent in the lead roles, while memorable performances from Richard Attenborough, Samuel L. Jackson, Jeff Goldblum, and Bob Peck add depth and personality. The child characters, Tim and Lex, avoid the usual pitfalls thanks to solid performances. Lex in particular proves unforgettable when it comes to screaming under pressure. More than 30 years after its release, the film still feels fresh. Its central idea, cloning dinosaurs from ancient DNA, may be scientifically implausible, since genetic material wouldn't survive intact for tens of millions of years, but realism isn't the point here. For a couple of hours, the movie asks us to suspend disbelief and enjoy the ride. Spielberg directs the action with a pulpy, adventurous rhythm reminiscent of Raiders of the Lost Ark, where danger is narrowly escaped at the last possible second. Jeff Goldblum's Ian Malcolm remains a standout, delivering both humor and a philosophical warning. Just because humanity has the power to resurrect dinosaurs doesn't mean it's wise to do so. His cautionary stance gives the film a thoughtful edge beneath the thrills. Ultimately, Jurassic Park succeeds by prioritizing impact over strict logic, a principle famously echoed by Edgar Allan Poe's approach to storytelling. The details don't have to be airtight if the experience works, and in this case, it absolutely does. Whether you're revisiting it on a hot afternoon indoors or discovering it for the first time, it remains an exciting, accessible, and endlessly rewatchable classic. As a storyteller, Michael Crichton leans heavily into his scientific instincts. He doesn't just wave his hands at the idea of resurrecting dinosaurs. He carefully walks the audience through the logic and mechanics behind it. Step by step, the process feels almost plausible. Then he spices things up with his own imagination. One memorable moment involves a young T-Rex toying with a defenseless human, the way a house cat toys with a wounded mouse. It's a striking image, though it stretches believability a bit. Reptiles aren't exactly known for playful behavior. Steven Spielberg's adaptation takes all of that and scales it up to epic proportions. The movie is massive in every sense, visually, emotionally, and technically. What was already a grand novel seems to burst open once it hits the screen. After the opening explanation of how dinosaurs are brought back, the story follows a classic suspense formula. A single malfunction unleashes chaos. When the system fails, the raw, primitive instincts of nature are set loose on the unlucky inhabitants of a dinosaur theme park that feels like a living, breathing amusement park. Once things go wrong, the people in charge, scientists, engineers, and executives, quickly discover that survival requires a lot more running than planning. Spielberg has explored this kind of terror before, tapping into deep-rooted fears. While everyone understands mortality in an abstract sense, being hunted and eaten alive triggers something far more primal. Nightmares are often built around that exact idea. Being chased by an unstoppable force while your body feels trapped in slow motion. And yes, people do get eaten here, though the first victims aren't exactly sympathetic. One is a foolish corporate spy who laughs his way into disaster, even attempting to interact with his pursuer like a pet. Another is an infamously slimy lawyer whose end comes in a moment of darkly comic irony. From there, the film becomes a relentless sequence of suspense set pieces. It's not necessary to describe them all. If you can imagine a tense scenario involving dinosaurs, chances are it's in this movie. The editing keeps the tension high, constantly cutting between looming disasters and frantic attempts to stop them. Chases erupt everywhere, across wide-open landscapes, through vehicles, inside labs, and even in kitchens. At one point, someone desperately warns, "Don't move," advice that is immediately ignored, with predictable consequences. Much of the film's power comes from its special effects, which were groundbreaking at the time and still hold up remarkably well. The dinosaurs feel tangible, not just visually but sonically. The sound design deserves special praise. Roars are mixed with chirps, whistles, rain hammering against glass, and the heavy, earth-shaking thud of enormous footsteps. Even subtle vibrations, what one character calls impact tremors, add to the realism. The musical score is equally direct, telling the audience exactly when to feel awe, dread, or wonder. The first appearance of the dinosaurs is treated almost like a religious experience, complete with soaring music that practically spells out, "Be amazed." Spielberg fully commits to the spectacle, letting his imagination run free, and the result is irresistibly engaging. It's the kind of movie that keeps an entire family glued to the screen. With a lighter tone, it could almost pass for a classic theme park fantasy, though the body count would have made that difficult. That said, the pursuit of spectacle sometimes comes at the cost of consistency. Certain character choices don't quite ring true. After surviving a brutal encounter and witnessing someone's gruesome death, a few characters calmly settle down for a peaceful night's sleep, smiling and relaxed. Later, they casually attempt to interact with gigantic herbivores, as if danger were no longer a concern. Moments like these strain credibility. There are also scientific details that invite nitpicking. The dinosaurs fog up glass when they breathe, suggesting warm blood, but other biological details don't always align. A hatchling appears without certain features it should logically have. The plot explains reproduction through borrowed frog DNA, though modern reptiles can reproduce without mates anyway. These are minor quibbles, more the grumbling of a detail-oriented viewer than serious flaws. Early on, the film briefly pauses to ask a bigger question. Just because science allows something, does that mean it should be done? That philosophical note doesn't linger long, but it adds a thoughtful edge beneath all the roaring, running, and chaos. In the end, the movie is a thrilling, high-impact ride, messy in places but unforgettable. It's loud, ambitious, occasionally illogical, and completely confident in its ability to sweep the audience along for the journey. Somewhere along the way, the film briefly flirts with a bigger idea, the age-old debate about humanity's relationship with nature. But that thought never really goes anywhere. Maybe it's meant as a gentle reminder not to play God with the natural world, though it feels like the movie isn't particularly interested in digging too deep. The question lingers anyway. Is nature something we exist to control for our own benefit, or something we should coexist with? The film quickly sidesteps that discussion, likely because pushing too hard might distract from the ride. Instead, it sticks with familiar thrills and classic storytelling, and honestly, that's probably for the best. Credit where it's due. Steven Spielberg has left a massive footprint on cinema, even if he doesn't always land with me personally. He sparked interest in archaeology and ancient relics, turned sharks into cultural nightmares, made audiences fall in love with a wrinkly little alien, and even managed to elevate performances people didn't expect much from. Say what you want, but his influence on film is undeniable. With this movie, he pulls off something extraordinary, bringing dinosaurs to life in a way no one had ever experienced before, wrapped inside a gripping adventure that instantly earned its place among the greats. It's hard to forget that first moment of awe when audiences saw these creatures moving and breathing on screen as if they were real. The initial T-Rex attack remains one of the most terrifying introductions in blockbuster history, and the final sequence with the raptors is still nerve-shredding. These scenes haven't lost their power. Even today, they command attention. The film has always been an enjoyable watch, not just because of its spectacle, but because it balances tension with humor and memorable characters. Richard Attenborough delivers a warm and convincing performance as the visionary behind the park, while the younger cast members hold their own impressively alongside the adults. The film isn't flawless. There are a few familiar thematic touches that Spielberg tends to revisit, but it's easier to focus on what the movie gets right. It was groundbreaking, wildly entertaining, and remains so decades later. Anyone even mildly interested in movies has likely seen it at least once, if not many times. Back in 1993, the biggest draw was unquestionably the jaw-dropping realism of the dinosaurs, achieved through cutting-edge computer graphics combined with masterful sound design and suspenseful staging. After seeing it in theaters for the first time, I remember lying awake for hours afterward, not scared, but buzzing with excitement. At that point in time, nothing had ever been attempted on that scale. Of course, years later, television documentaries and modern CGI have made this level of realism feel more familiar, which slightly dulls the original shock factor. Viewed today, the dialogue feels thinner in places, and the film doesn't quite hit the same five-star high it once did. That said, one element that still doesn't get enough praise is the sound design. When the T-Rex makes its first appearance, it isn't just the visual that terrifies, it's the deep, thunderous roar that shakes the scene to its core. That kind of audio impact is still incredibly effective. Overall, it remains a thrilling, family-friendly action-adventure that continues to entertain. Adapted from a best-selling novel by its own author, the movie delivers excitement, suspense, scares, humor, and some of the most convincing effects ever put on screen at the time. The story centers on a wealthy visionary who creates a remote theme park filled with cloned dinosaurs, using ancient DNA. To reassure investors and the public, he invites a team of experts, including a paleontologist, a plant specialist, and a chaos theory mathematician, to evaluate the park. Confident in his systems, he even brings his grandchildren along for the tour. Naturally, things don't go according to plan. Spielberg once again demonstrates his command of large-scale entertainment, infusing the film with scope and energy. The exotic locations, striking production design, polished cinematography, and sweeping musical score all work together to elevate the experience. The result is a landmark adventure film that still holds a special place in cinema history. At first glance, the story doesn't rush headlong into chaos, choosing instead to ease the audience into its world. But once it finds its rhythm, it becomes utterly absorbing, especially when the Tyrannosaurus Rex and the Velociraptors finally step into the spotlight as genuinely terrifying threats. The dinosaurs feel astonishingly real thanks to a seamless blend of practical craftsmanship and groundbreaking digital work, creating creatures that still hold up decades later. The cast strikes an effective balance between amazement and sheer terror, allowing the spectacle to enhance rather than overpower their performances. One standout is Jeff Goldblum, who brings irresistible charm and eccentric humor to his role, making every scene he's in memorable. The supporting cast is equally well chosen, from the no-nonsense game warden to the ill-fated lawyer, and the scientists and staff members trying, and failing, to keep the park under control. What truly elevates the experience is how the audience mirrors the emotions of the characters. Wonder quickly turns into anxiety, and awe gives way to fear. There's a sense of cinematic magic at work, the kind that captivates both children and adults who have ever been fascinated by the long-lost giants of Earth's past. Beneath the thrills lies a familiar yet effective cautionary idea: humanity's dangerous temptation to overstep its limits and play God. The theme is handled with confidence and style, reinforcing the story without becoming heavy-handed. The screenplay adaptation streamlined elements from the original novel, reducing certain subplots and reworking character arcs for a tighter cinematic experience. Some characters meet different fates on screen than they do on the page, while others were reimagined or combined during early development. Despite these deviations, the film captures the spirit of the source material remarkably well, proving that the director was an ideal choice for translating the story to film. Genre blending is one of the movie's greatest strengths. It merges science fiction, adventure, humor, and suspense with impressive control. Much of the tension is driven by a sense of isolation. The characters are trapped in a confined environment, surrounded by predators, with no easy escape. Nighttime sequences, torrential rain, and limited visibility amplify the danger, constantly keeping viewers on edge and wondering when the next attack will strike. Interestingly, despite its lengthy runtime, the film features surprisingly little actual dinosaur screen time. Only a small portion involves full creature appearances, split between animatronics and computer-generated imagery, yet the impact is enormous. This restraint enhances the suspense and makes every encounter feel significant. The performances contribute greatly to the film's enduring success. Goldblum's character, in particular, leaves a lasting impression, evolving beyond his literary counterpart and becoming so popular that his fate was later altered in subsequent stories. The leading performances are solid and engaging, while the park's visionary founder is portrayed with warmth and charisma. The young actors also deserve praise, convincingly portraying fear and forming a believable bond with the adult leads. Although rooted in a popular novel, the finished film unmistakably bears the director's personal touch. Recurring themes from his earlier work, especially issues surrounding responsibility, authority, and strained paternal instincts, are woven naturally into the narrative. The result is not just a faithful adaptation, but a defining entry in the director's filmography and a landmark achievement in modern cinema. One of the most interesting character arcs in Jurassic Park belongs to Alan Grant, played by Sam Neill. At the beginning of the story, Grant is openly uncomfortable around children and firmly believes fatherhood is not part of his future. That perspective is challenged when he is forced to look after John Hammond's grandchildren, Tim and Lex. Their relationship starts off tense and awkward, but as the danger escalates, Grant slowly steps into a protective role. By the end of the film, he has effectively become a surrogate father figure, realizing that caring for others can outweigh fears and long-held personal limitations. Beyond character development, the film delivers a surprisingly sharp critique of unchecked scientific ambition. Ian Malcolm, arguably the most memorable character, voices the film's central warning. Humanity's obsession with what it can do often overshadows whether it should do it at all. He argues that Hammond's scientists push the boundaries of nature without fully considering the consequences. Grant and Ellie Sattler echo this concern, pointing out that dinosaurs vanished millions of years ago, and that resurrecting them creates an unpredictable and potentially disastrous new reality. Even decades later, in a world still debating cloning and genetic experimentation, this cautionary message remains strikingly relevant. A major reason the film continues to impress is its groundbreaking special effects. The dinosaurs still feel convincing today, a testament to the innovative collaboration between Industrial Light and Magic and Stan Winston Studios. The seamless blend of computer-generated imagery and animatronics allowed the creatures to interact believably with live actors, helping turn the film into a massive box office success. Spielberg assembled an extraordinary team, including Phil Tippett, Michael Lantery, and Dennis Muren, while paleontologist Jack Horner ensured the dinosaurs were portrayed as animals rather than exaggerated movie monsters. That creative choice is crucial to the film's tone. Spielberg was never interested in making a simple monster movie. The dinosaurs behave according to instinct, not malice. The velociraptors are terrifying not because they are evil, but because they hunt intelligently. In a clever reversal, the Tyrannosaurus Rex, initially the most fearsome threat, ultimately becomes an unlikely savior, rescuing the protagonists in the film's climax. Other species such as the Dilophosaurus, Brachiosaurus, Triceratops, Gallimimus, and Parasaurolophus help give the park a sense of scale and realism, while additional dinosaurs are hinted at through background details like embryo storage labels. Considering the technological limitations of the early 1990s, the achievement is even more impressive. Without today's advanced CGI tools, the filmmakers relied heavily on mechanical models and practical effects to sell the illusion. Sound design also plays a massive role in the film's realism. The The now iconic T-Rex roar was created by blending noises from multiple animals, including elephants, tigers, and crocodiles, resulting in a sound that feels ancient and unnatural. This attention to audio detail helped make the film the first to use the DTS surround sound system, adding another layer of immersion. Michael Lantery later noted that one of the most challenging effects was the trembling water in the cup that signals the T-Rex's approach, a subtle but brilliant way of building tension before the dinosaur even appears. Moments like this demonstrate why Jurassic Park remains not just a technical milestone, but a masterclass in storytelling, atmosphere, and restraint. The ingenuity behind the film's special effects is still astonishing decades later. One clever example involves a simple glass of water placed on a guitar. By plucking the strings attached to a car panel, the filmmakers created the iconic vibration effect that signaled the dinosaur's approach. Even more surprising is the fact that many of the velociraptors seen on screen, particularly during the tense kitchen sequence, were not digital creations at all, but performers inside carefully designed rubber suits. The post-production phase also benefited from the involvement of George Lucas, whose supervision convinced him that visual effects technology had finally matured enough to revive the Star Wars saga. That confidence eventually led to the release of Star Wars, Episode I, The Phantom Menace in 1999. Any discussion of Jurassic Park would be incomplete without acknowledging the extraordinary contribution of composer John Williams. Known for unforgettable themes such as Star Wars and Superman, Williams delivered one of the most powerful soundtracks of his career here. The score masterfully blends the various compositional styles he developed throughout the 1990s into a single, unified musical identity. The result is a soundtrack that feels magical, emotionally rich, and inseparable from the film's sense of wonder and danger. Critically analyzing Jurassic Park is no simple task. While it may not aim for the narrative complexity of The Godfather, it stands tall as a landmark adventure film and one of Steven Spielberg's finest achievements. That alone is reason enough to consider it a remarkable work. Released in 1993, the film firmly embedded dinosaurs and the now iconic theme into global pop culture, reshaping it almost overnight. Its box office success was equally monumental, earning over $914 million worldwide and holding the title of the highest-grossing film in history until Titanic surpassed it in 1997. Although it doesn't carry the same gravitas as Spielberg's more serious works like Schindler's List or Saving Private Ryan, Jurassic Park is a blockbuster with genuine substance. Based on a best-selling novel that respected its readers' intelligence, the film does the same for its audience. Spielberg delivers a story that is both thrilling and thoughtful, an increasingly rare balance in big-budget Hollywood cinema. The premise is deceptively simple. Scientific advancements allow dinosaurs to be cloned and placed on a remote island, transformed into a high-security theme park. Naturally, when human greed and technical failures collide, chaos follows. Terror replaces wonder, and the dream rapidly turns into a nightmare. Despite his success, Spielberg has always had his critics, those who dismiss his work whether it's a popcorn spectacle like this dinosaur epic or a deeply emotional historical drama. Fortunately, such voices remain a minority. Spielberg makes films for audiences who love cinema, and his enthusiasm for the medium is evident in every frame. Listening to him discuss filmmaking legends like David Lean reveals a director who is both a student and a fan of the art form. In Jurassic Park, Spielberg directs with childlike excitement, using every tool at his disposal with unrestrained joy. The result is one of the most entertaining science fiction and adventure films of the 1990s. Considering it was produced for roughly $63 million and went on to earn over $914 million globally, its widespread appeal is undeniable. The performances, while serviceable, are not the film's strongest element. At times, actors like Laura Dern, Sam Neill, and Richard Attenborough feel restrained or understated, but this hardly detracts from the overall experience. Jeff Goldblum, on the other hand, fully embraces his role as Ian Malcolm, injecting the film with humor, charm, and a welcome sense of irony. His presence provides much-needed levity amid the escalating danger. Ultimately, though, audiences are here for the dinosaurs, and they do not disappoint. Brought to life by ILM with groundbreaking precision, these creatures remain visually stunning even today. Spielberg expertly builds suspense, delivering one nerve-wracking sequence after another. He carefully eases viewers into a false sense of comfort, beginning with gentle, plant-eating giants and family-friendly wonder, before unleashing the full terror lurking beneath the surface. At first, the film takes its time, carefully setting the stage and introducing its characters. But then, oh yes, once the dinosaurs arrive, it's all roaring T-Rexes, razor-clawed raptors, and pulse-pounding suspense. From that moment on, you're buckled into a cinematic roller coaster that barely lets you breathe. This is pure movie magic, and cinema would undoubtedly be poorer without Steven Spielberg's imagination and ambition. Released with an enormous marketing push, Jurassic Park went on to earn a staggering amount at the box office. Unlike many heavily promoted blockbusters, and yes, I'm looking at you, Harry Potter, this film truly earned every penny audiences paid to see it. There are only two minor points that raise an eyebrow. First, John Hammond's accent is supposedly Scottish, but wherever it's meant to be from, it certainly isn't Scotland. Ironically, Richard Attenborough owned a holiday cottage on the Isle of Bute. If he'd wanted help with a convincing accent, he could have asked just about anyone local. Second, the presence of a so-called big game hunter feels a bit outdated. Big game hunting had been widely condemned and restricted for decades by the time the story takes place, so surely this character should be closer to retirement age. That said, these are tiny nitpicks in an otherwise outstanding piece of entertainment. Technically, the film is close to flawless, and much of that achievement comes from its pioneering use of CGI. What's remarkable is that the computer-generated dinosaurs from this 1993 release still look more convincing than the effects in many later films. Compare them to the work in various Stephen Sommers movies, and the difference becomes clear. It's also worth remembering how far cinema has come. This is a world away from the old days, when dinosaur effects meant gluing fins onto lizards. Amid all the chaos and spectacle, there is one surprisingly thoughtful scene that stands out. It's the moment when scientist Henry Wu explains how dinosaurs have been brought back to life. The scene is beautifully written and perfectly acted, and within the story's context, it represents the greatest scientific achievement in human history, arguably even surpassing the moon landing. It would have been easy and lazy to gloss over the enormity of that accomplishment, but Spielberg instead reminds both the characters and the audience what scientific discovery truly means. Even the most matter-of-fact scientist should feel awe and pride at resurrecting creatures extinct for millions of years. This moment elevates Jurassic Park beyond being just another effects-heavy summer blockbuster and gives real weight to its thrilling premise. The story itself is set on a remote island near Costa Rica, leased by wealthy entrepreneur John Hammond. Hidden within its dense jungles is a revolutionary attraction. Jurassic Park, a theme park where living, breathing dinosaurs roam. Thanks to DNA extracted from mosquitoes preserved in amber, extinct species such as Triceratops, Brachiosaurus, Velociraptors, and the fearsome Tyrannosaurus rex have been cloned back into existence. After a fatal accident involving a park worker, Hammond's investors grow uneasy about safety. To ease their concerns, Hammond invites renowned paleontologists Alan Grant and Ellie Sattler, along with chaos theorist Ian Malcolm and lawyer Donald Gennaro, to inspect the park and give their approval. Unfortunately, events spiral out of control when a violent storm hits the island at the same time. A disgruntled employee sabotages the security systems in order to steal dinosaur embryos for a rival corporation. With the electric fences down, the dinosaurs are no longer contained, and the humans quickly become the hunted. Directed by Spielberg, Jurassic Park was a colossal box office success and held the record for the highest-grossing film until Titanic arrived years later. Even now, it remains hugely entertaining. Based on Michael Crichton's novel, with the film entering production before the book was even released, the screenplay delivers a perfect balance of suspense, wonder, and spectacle. The large-scale action sequences still impress, the special effects have aged remarkably well, and moments like a towering T-Rex charging through the jungle after a fleeing jeep remain unforgettable highlights of modern cinema. The story is fairly believable, and thankfully, it never drowns itself in heavy scientific mumbo-jumbo. All the different plot threads eventually come together nicely, even if I wouldn't have minded seeing a few more characters become dinosaur snacks, preferably while still breathing. Most of the characters are easy to like, and surprisingly, even the kids aren't unbearable. That said, there's one moment that really stretches credibility. Lex struggles to switch off a simple flashlight early on, yet later she suddenly knows how to operate one of the most advanced computer systems in the world, and single-handedly restores power to the entire park. Convenient, to say the least. There is, however, one character I simply couldn't stand. Laura Dern's scientist grated on my nerves from start to finish. Whether it was the performance or the way the character was written, I'm not entirely sure, but I honestly found myself wishing she'd met a slow, tooth-filled demise. Harsh, maybe. Honest, absolutely. My main issue with the film is its pacing. Once things finally kick into gear, around the halfway mark, it's pure entertainment right through to the finale. Before that, though, the movie feels sluggish, weighed down by overly deliberate explanations and obvious exposition scenes. You can practically feel the filmmakers pausing to make sure the audience is fully briefed, especially during all the talk about how intelligent and dangerous the velociraptors are. I appreciate build-up and character development, but I've never been a fan of long runtimes, and this one could easily have been trimmed by 15 or 20 minutes without losing anything essential. That complaint aside, the movie is still an exciting, action-packed family horror film, and yes, I absolutely consider it a horror film. If it had been directed by anyone other than Spielberg, that's exactly how it would be labeled. Spielberg brings style and confidence to the action and effects, delivering standout moments like the T-Rex devouring a goat in one bite, attacking the jeeps, and the tense kitchen sequence where the velociraptors stalk the kids. Everything looks and sounds fantastic, with special effects and CGI that still hold up remarkably well. There are plenty of genuinely scary moments and a few touches of mild gore, which means it might be a bit much for very young children. With a reported budget of around $63 million, the film is technically impressive and set a new benchmark for visual effects in cinema. Some of the jungle locations are beautiful, even though much of the filming actually took place in California rather than Costa Rica. The performances are decent overall, but let's be honest, the real stars are the dinosaurs, so the acting doesn't need to carry the film. Richard Attenborough returned to the screen after a long absence and brings warmth and charm. Samuel L. Jackson appears briefly before becoming a superstar. Sam Neill is solid. Goldblum steals every scene he's in with ease, and as mentioned earlier, Dern just didn't work for me. At the end of the day, this is simply a great movie. It's straightforward, thrilling, packed with iconic moments, and perfect for a lazy Saturday afternoon. Incredible effects, memorable set pieces, and non-stop dinosaur action. What more could you ask for? Most people on the planet have probably seen it by now, but if you're one of the few who hasn't, there's really no excuse. The film later spawned 2 enjoyable sequels and laid the groundwork for an entire franchise. Beyond that, it holds a special place in film history. Much like stepping from black and white into color in classic cinema, the first reveal of the dinosaurs remains unforgettable. Spielberg wisely focused on the stunned reactions of the characters, which mirrored exactly how audiences felt. Years later, the 3D re-release only reinforced how effective and timeless those moments are. The groundbreaking blend of CGI and animatronics revolutionized visual effects, leaving behind the stiff stop-motion creatures of earlier eras. These dinosaurs felt alive. They had weight, personality, and presence. While the technical achievements alone would have guaranteed its legacy, it's the combination of story, characters, and pure cinematic wonder that truly elevates the film to classic status. Richard Attenborough has always radiated warmth on screen, so it's no surprise he once portrayed Santa Claus in the 1994 remake of Miracle on 34th Street. Beyond acting, he was also a highly respected filmmaker, earning an Academy Award for directing Gandhi in 1982, notably beating Steven Spielberg's E.T. the Extraterrestrial that year. His directing resume also includes A Bridge Too Far, A Chorus Line, Chaplin, and one underrated favorite of mine, Magic. Sadly, Attenborough, now nearing 90, has recently entered hospice care due to declining health. In Jurassic Park, Attenborough plays John Hammond, a visionary entrepreneur who funds a team of scientists capable of resurrecting dinosaurs using ancient DNA. Hammond's flair for spectacle leads him to create a dinosaur-themed park designed to amaze visitors by showcasing these creatures in a carefully controlled natural environment. But when legal concerns arise, Hammond's investors demand an inspection, because honestly, what could possibly go wrong? Enter the inspection team: paleontologist Dr. Alan Grant, paleobotanist Dr. Ellie Sattler, and the ever-opinionated chaos theorist Dr. Ian Malcolm, played memorably by Jeff Goldblum. Along for the ride are Hammond's 2 grandchildren and a skeptical corporate numbers guy. Unsurprisingly, things unravel fast, largely due to sabotage by the park's disgruntled computer technician, played by Wayne Knight. A fun blink-and-you'll-miss-it detail: a photo of J. Robert Oppenheimer appears on his computer monitor. Samuel L. Jackson pops up with a now iconic line of dialogue and seems to be warming up for his later role in Deep Blue Sea. Another standout is Bob Peck as the park's game warden, who delivers the chilling, clever girl line with quiet menace. Real-life paleontologist Jack Horner served as a scientific consultant on the film and was a key inspiration for Dr. Grant's character. The film's journey to the screen is interesting in itself. Even before Michael Crichton finished writing the novel, studios were battling for the rights. Spielberg won and brought Crichton on to draft the screenplay, with David Cope later refining it. Crichton is also known for Westworld, The Andromeda Strain, and Twister, while Cope would go on to write Mission Impossible, Panic Room, and Spider-Man. And of course, the unforgettable musical score was composed by John Williams, delivering one of his most majestic themes. Jurassic Park earned 3 Academy Awards for sound and visual effects, and many feel it deserved a Best Picture nomination as well. Spielberg likely wasn't too bothered. His other 1993 release, Schindler's List, went on to win Best Picture anyway. Viewers often wonder what became of the young actors. Joseph Mazzello, who played Tim, later appeared in The Social Network, The Pacific, and Justified. Ariana Richards, who played Lex, was cast largely for her convincing portrayal of fear and intelligence. While she still acts occasionally, she has largely shifted her focus to visual art. This film absolutely demands to be experienced on the largest screen possible, with powerful sound. The 3D remaster justifies the ticket price, and watching younger audience members react with awe was a reminder of how timeless this movie remains. There's no need to wait for sequels. The original still delivers pure cinematic magic. I first saw Jurassic Park in theaters in 1993 with my then-girlfriend, now wife. Anticipation was sky-high, and the film delivered exactly what audiences hoped for: jaw-dropping dinosaurs. While the story mainly serves as a framework for the spectacle, and the characters are solid rather than exceptional, the film truly shines once the dinosaurs take center stage. It takes nearly an hour to get there, but that slow build-up works in its favor, creating tension and excitement. When the T-Rex finally appears, the payoff is massive and terrifying. The Jeep chase and the climactic Velociraptor sequence, especially in the kitchen, remain thrilling highlights. Sam Neill and Jeff Goldblum anchor the film well, and Laura Dern brings a likable strength to her role. In the end, Jurassic Park plays like a theme park adventure with genuinely frightening monsters, and that's exactly why it still works. One thing I'll get out of the way early. The lead actress doesn't exactly do much for me in the attractiveness department, though that's obviously subjective. What really stands out instead are the younger performers, especially the girl, who brings a lot of energy and charm to her role. Richard Attenborough gives off serious, kindly grandfather vibes, almost like a cinematic Santa Claus. Wayne Knight plays a sneaky antagonist type, and the first time I watched this movie, he felt like he'd wandered in from a completely different film. Revisiting it now, his performance still leans heavily into cartoonish territory, but honestly, that exaggerated style helps him stand apart from the rest of the cast and adds contrast. Clocking in at just over 2 hours, the movie was filmed across lush locations like Hawaii, Costa Rica, and the Dominican Republic, which helps sell the illusion of a remote, dangerous paradise. Bottom line: the dinosaurs and suspense are top tier, while the plot and character depth are serviceable but not remarkable. And that's okay. This is a straightforward, family-friendly adventure that doesn't aim to be deep, it aims to thrill, and thrill it does. What audiences came for were believable dinosaurs and heart-pounding moments, and the movie absolutely delivers on that front, often dipping into outright horror. From a historical standpoint, this film will always be remembered as the first major blockbuster to truly convince audiences that computer-generated creatures could feel real. The groundbreaking visual effects alone cement its legacy as a classic, but there's more here than just technical innovation. It's unmistakably Spielberg-style entertainment, exciting, polished, and crowd-pleasing. The story itself isn't the main attraction, and if we're being honest, it's fairly thin. Everything revolves around the dinosaurs, and the human drama mostly exists to move us from one incredible set piece to the next. The cast is relatively small, and the dinosaurs easily steal the spotlight, particularly the Velociraptors and the unforgettable T-Rex. While the main trio is hit or miss, Sam Neill holds his own, Laura Dern is decent if not extraordinary, and Bob Peck feels a bit like a familiar genre actor rather than a standout. Where the film really shines is in its supporting players. Jeff Goldblum, Richard Attenborough, Samuel L. Jackson, Wayne Knight, and B.D. Wong all add personality and flavor that elevate the material. Visually, I've never been completely sold on the film's aesthetic. Some scenes are overly bright and colorful for my taste, and a few sets clearly feel artificial, almost toy-like. In fact, some of them probably were built from plastic. A handful of moments are obviously studio-bound, but thankfully the dinosaurs themselves never look fake, which is what truly matters. The movie is tense, exciting, and above all, incredibly fun. It balances suspense with moments of humor, and is perfectly complemented by an iconic musical score that instantly heightens every scene it accompanies. This franchise has meant a lot to me ever since I was a kid. I've watched the original trilogy countless times, collected toys, and spent hours playing the games. So revisiting this series again, especially with a new installment on the horizon, felt like the perfect excuse for a full rewatch. Starting again with the original film, I can confidently say it still holds up remarkably well decades later. One of the biggest strengths of the movie is the way it brought dinosaurs to life in a way no one had seen before. The combination of practical animatronics and early CGI was revolutionary at the time, and impressively, it still looks great today. The musical score remains unforgettable, instantly sparking excitement whenever it swells. The performances across the board are solid, and it's refreshing to see how the characters initially react with awe and excitement to the idea of dinosaurs rather than immediate fear. There's also a strong thematic thread running through the film about scientific arrogance and lack of foresight. One character, in particular, repeatedly warns that nature can't be controlled, and by the end, he's proven right in every possible way. As the story progresses, the adventure gradually transforms into a survival horror experience, with massive predators hunting the cast through rain-soaked enclosures and dark hallways. The resulting chase sequences are still nerve-wracking and memorable, reminding us why this movie remains such a landmark in blockbuster cinema. In the end, this is one of those rare films that nails the balance between spectacle and restraint. It delivers the thrills and awe of a massive Hollywood event while never spiraling into excess. Jurassic Park stands as a timeless classic, and there's little doubt it will continue to be celebrated for generations. No matter how hard Hollywood has tried to recreate the lightning in a bottle captured here, it has never quite succeeded. This film came together at the perfect moment, with exactly the right people both in front of the camera and behind it. It's no surprise that Jurassic Park earned its accolades for visual effects, sound design, and editing. Every department played a role in shaping what is arguably one of the finest science fiction films ever made. Even decades later, it remains unmatched as a monster movie. Very few creature features have ever felt this authentic or believable. While computer-generated imagery played an important role, much of the film's realism comes from the astonishing practical dinosaur models, especially the iconic Tyrannosaurus Rex. The animatronics pushed filmmaking technology forward in a huge way. These mechanical creations weren't just props, they moved, reacted, and truly felt alive. That physical presence gives the dinosaurs a weight and realism that CGI alone rarely achieves. Even today, behind-the-scenes footage showing the construction and operation of the T-Rex is fascinating to watch. The foundation of the film, and the entire franchise that followed, comes from the 1990 novel by Michael Crichton. Though trained as a medical doctor, Crichton chose storytelling over practicing medicine and became one of the most influential sci-fi thriller writers of all time. His work often blended science, medicine, and suspense with remarkable clarity. Out of his 26 novels, more than half were adapted into films, including his first major cinematic success, The Andromeda Strain, 1971. By 2020, his books had sold over 200 million copies worldwide. Crichton's collaboration with Steven Spielberg proved especially fruitful. Spielberg, already an accomplished filmmaker across multiple genres, has always had a special talent for science fiction. Beyond the Jurassic Park series, his involvement in films like E.T. the Extraterrestrial, Gremlins, Back to the Future, and Inner Space helped define modern blockbuster cinema. Every element of Jurassic Park works beautifully, from its straightforward but effective story to its outstanding cast. While the film has been analyzed and praised countless times, it still deserves recognition for the creative minds behind it. Both Crichton and Spielberg built legacies that will continue to entertain audiences well into the future. As for how it should be seen, anyone who hasn't experienced Jurassic Park on a theater screen should absolutely seek out that opportunity. Watching it at home, even on a large television, simply doesn't capture the sheer scale of the dinosaurs. This is a movie designed for the big screen, where its sense of size, danger, and wonder truly shines. On a personal note, I've had a long relationship with Jurassic Park. Like many kids, I went through a dinosaur phase, one I'm not entirely sure I ever outgrew. I watched this movie often when I was young. It may not have been my all-time favorite back then, but it was always exciting, thrilling, and occasionally terrifying. Years later, when the film was re-released in theaters in 3D in 2013, I saw it again as an adult. I hadn't watched it since childhood, and the experience reminded me just how well it holds up. The film was still fun and intense, but now I could fully appreciate the craftsmanship behind it. The big screen presentation was so strong that even the added 3D, an era we all remember, felt surprisingly acceptable. Some movies age. Jurassic Park evolves with you. Watching it again years later gave me a familiar sense of enjoyment, but it was my most recent revisit a few nights ago that really made things click. This film isn't simply solid or nostalgic, it's remarkably close to flawless. Everything about it feels finely tuned: the rhythm of the storytelling, the clarity of the characters, and the way it effortlessly balances suspense with humor. The cast may be built around fairly straightforward personalities, but they're immediately readable and likable, which makes you root for them rather than passively wait for chaos to strike. One of the movie's biggest strengths is how focused it feels. Instead of hinging on world-ending stakes like so many blockbusters, the tension here is intimate. Survival matters because we care about the people involved, not because the planet is on the line. That smaller scale makes every threat feel more personal and every close call more intense. And then there are the effects. It's honestly wild how well they've held up. No, they're not completely flawless. If you really squint, you can spot a few moments where modern CGI would add more surface detail, especially in brightly lit shots. But the major sequences, particularly the first encounter with the T-Rex and the climactic raptor scenes, still feel incredibly real. Even by today's standards, it's hard to imagine them being done much better. The craftsmanship on display is staggering, especially when you remember how old the film actually is. What also stood out to me this time around is the pacing. As a kid, I remember feeling impatient for the island action to begin. Now those early scenes feel perfectly judged. They establish the characters and the central ideas without dragging things out, and once the story reaches its conclusion, it wraps things up briskly without feeling rushed. There's a confidence in knowing what deserves time and what doesn't, and that confidence shows in every scene. If there are issues, they're pretty minor. Some viewers might find the child characters grating, though they never really bothered me, and their presence helps broaden the film's appeal. A few lines meant to underline gender politics feel a bit stiff by modern standards, and one major supporting actor arguably doesn't get as much to do as he could. Still, these are small blemishes on an otherwise polished experience. This isn't a deeply philosophical movie, but it's never shallow or condescending either. It knows its main goal is to entertain, and it absolutely delivers on that front. If you want to dig deeper, there's some light but interesting commentary about humanity trying to control nature and turn it into a commodity, but the film never lets those ideas slow the ride. If you've somehow missed this movie, fix that immediately. It's thrilling, funny, tense, and endlessly rewatchable, and it hasn't lost its charm or impact even decades later. And if it's been a while since you last saw it, revisit it. You might be surprised by just how well it's aged.